Today's edition of the Spot Track Podcast is presented by Bettor Edge. Visit bettoredge.com. Download the app in the iOS App Store today. It's the premier social betting marketplace. It's fast, it's lightning, it's reliable. You set the prices, you set the competitions, go head to head, create a group, create a big competition. How about a work-setting competition? Plenty of sports to get to this time of year, plenty of reasons to bet. Why not use Bettor Edge? Visit bettoredge.com. Use code SPOTTRACK. Get yourself $20 off at registration. My name is Mike Ginnitti. It is Monday, September 22nd. Week 3 of the NFL season is nearly in the books. It was a wild one. Speaking of betting, you probably lost a little money this week if that's your neck of the woods, because I don't think anybody had 30-0 Carolina over Atlanta. I don't think anybody had Cleveland anywhere close to Green Bay. And boy, the block fest that ensued across the league, especially early on in those games, was certainly not something to be predicting in the days prior. Let's put it that way. We're going to have a quick six-pack, numbers-based six-pack, because what else do we do here? And then a little bit on the NFL and a little bit on the WNBA on the back end of this, because they're in the midst of their playoffs right now. Pretty exciting stuff, despite the fact that a couple of superstars are not with us right now. And then once that season closes, there's some potential disaster in the making. And we're going to talk about some of the ramifications and some of the things surrounding what comes next with the WNBA as a whole, because quite frankly, things could be completely turned upside down over the course of the next 3 months in that league. Number one, 300,000. For those of you that follow me on Twitter or X, you know what this means. $300,000 is what Daniel Jones has already earned in addition to his base value contract with the Indianapolis Colts for winning 3 games. He has an incentive in his contract that every single game where he takes 50% of the snaps and the team wins, he gets $100,000 more. So it's obviously a bit of a showcase contract. That's what he was looking for this offseason to get him back in good graces. It's got basically a $14 million base value. He's already added $300,000 to that. That can continue to go on with these regular season wins. And then there's basically playoff situations that follow, right? So if they make the playoffs, and their Colts are certainly on pace for that right now, whatever he hits in terms of playing time throughout this season with a maximum of 60%, which again, he's very much on pace for, 60% playing time plus a playoff berth for Daniel Jones gets him $1 million. So significant. Then if he starts to win playoff games with 50% of snaps, it jumps up to $250,000 per win. So plenty of ways to make more money. He's already on pace to probably get himself closer to 15 to 15.5 million just in terms of base value this season. Probably 16 if they can sneak into the playoffs. And then we start talking about long term, because if he's a playoff quarterback, if this is a 10 or 11 win team, and if he's, around 100 with that passer rating, which it looks like he could be, he's slinging the ball pretty well right now. Now we're talking about the next version of Sam Darnold's free agent contract, Baker Mayfield's free agent contract, etc. So we're there, at least through 3 weeks. It's early, but he's already bagged himself a pretty hefty little incentive, and that won't stop for the foreseeable future. Speaking of which, number 2, 200,000. That's what Marcus Mariota is getting per win that he takes 50% of the snaps in for the Washington Commanders, which is what happened yesterday against the Raiders. A little bit more aggressive of a contract. However, not as much of a base value. So he's got an $8 million base value, pretty much fully guaranteed on that with some per game active bonuses built into there. And then 60% snaps plus a team win equals $200,000. But that maxes out at 12 wins, which, 12 times 200,000 is $2.4 million. I think most of us would take that for a regular season. Same kind of thing with the playoffs. If he makes the playoffs and he has taken 70% of the snaps in the regular season, it's $1 million. I don't think we're on pace for that. It seems like Jaden Daniels' knee injury is somewhat tempered, mild, and should be back maybe even next week. But nice for the Commanders to know that they have a reliable backup quarterback. We talked about that last week, that more teams are starting to go that route. Mariota proved his worth right out of the gate, and this is one of the higher valued QB2 contracts we have in the books right now. But you see why it exists. You see why this was a no-brainer for Washington, especially because Jaden Daniels is relatively cheap this and next season before he becomes extension eligible. Number 3, 60. That's the buyout value for Dabo Swinney at Clemson right now. I had to look it up because I saw the numbers floating out there, and I couldn't believe that was actually the number because this is the 3rd year of his extension already. That's the number. It's 60. It drops to 47, I believe. Excuse me. It drops to 58 next year. So this ain't going anywhere, okay? And then after that, it starts to become the cumulative of whatever remains on the contract. So I believe it goes 60, 58, or 57 next year, and then down into like the 48, 47 mark for 2027. So look, there's a reason he's talking out loud. That's who he is. That's who he's always been. He has plenty of clout within that university after the last 15 plus years of doing what he's done. And he's got this security. He can say what he wants to say right now because the alternative is he gets fired and gets $60 million to walk away. So not a bad gig for a team that is certainly struggling. But man, talk about job security. That's exactly what Dabo Swinney and his agent have afforded him with the structure of this contract. Number 4, 59. Mike Trout became the 59th player to hit 400 home runs in Major League Baseball this past week. It took him a minute. Obviously, the injuries have piled up, and I don't want to be negative about Mike Trout. But how about this for a stat? 400 total home runs. 200 have been hit at home. 200 have been hit on the road. That's about as good as it gets with 400 home runs. That shows just how decently consistent this player has been out of the gate. A lot of these home runs came in the first 8 seasons, obviously. The career has been derailed since for the most part. But let's talk about this contract. He's 34 years old. He's got 5 years and $177 million left on this thing. So there's going to be more home runs. There's going to be more injuries. We're going to have to take it with a grain of salt. And oh, by the way, his Angels are the worst team in the American League and the 3rd worst team in Major League Baseball heading towards the finish line here. So unfortunately, that story just continues to rewrite itself every single season. Mike Trout injuries and the Angels being bad. It's becoming a tradition like no other, and I wish it could change because this guy was on pace to be all-world. He's obviously walking, backwards into the Hall of Fame, but these milestones are going to be minimized because of his lack of plate appearances on an annual basis. So it's a great story, but it also is just a reminder that this could have been so much better. It feels so much like me growing up in the Ken Griffey Jr. era, a guy who I religiously rooted for. And when it got to this point of his career, he was just struggling to get on TV with him. he was on the IL as much as he wasn't. And when he was playing, he was great. He was elite still. And that is what Mike Trout has been. There's still moments of absolute all-pro out of him, but just not a consistent basis. And to finish this off, a little positivity. The fan who caught the ball didn't ask for thousands of dollars, didn't ask for season tickets, which, by the way, might be a punishment with the Angels. He asked to play catch with Mike Trout, and that's what he got to give the ball back. So good by you. That's a heck of a story to finish off the season, a bad season for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Number 5 is 58. We're going right down the line here. 60, 59, 58. That's Cal Raleigh's home run total right now. It's 10 more than any catcher has hit ever in a single season. It's obviously his career high. And only 7 players in the history of Major League Baseball have hit more than this in a season. Barry Bonds did it. McGuire did it twice. Sosa did it 3 times. Ruth did it twice. Maris did it. Judge did it. And Giancarlo Stanton did it. And now Cal Raleigh with 59 is right behind that list. 58. And he can tie Stanton with his next home run if he can get there in the next 6 games. The Mariners are now magic number 3 to win the AL West with their win last night over Houston. And in terms of contract, Cal Raleigh just signed a 6 for $105 extension, bought out all of his arbitration years at $34 million. And then he gets 3 years of free agency at about $71 million, including a buyout and an option that's not going to vest. So pretty good coin, but also could be pretty good value if this guy's a perennial 40-plus homers guy and gold glove caliber catcher, which is exactly what he has been now for the better part of 2 seasons. So I don't think we'll see another 60 home run season out of him. We generally don't when somebody has this kind of a season, but this won't be a massive anomaly either. This guy is a true power hitter, a true baseball player in all the senses. And to have a cornerstone player like this on a 6 for 105 that gets you 3 years of his free agency bought out, pretty good deal for Seattle, who are really setting themselves up nicely to be, I think, annual contenders, certainly in the division, but maybe in the American League as well. And last but not least, number 4. That's how many teams have won their first 3 games of the season in the final minute to start the year. That's what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have done. They're the 4th team since the merger in 1970 to be able to do something like that. And look, it's good and it's bad. Why are you in that position at the end of the game? But also, you have the stones to get to the finish line at the end of the game. And certainly yesterday against the Jets, that back and forth last 2 to 3 minutes was pretty wild. And Baker Mayfield just keeps prevailing in these moments. And that is the overlying issue here, right? That is the overlying takeaway, which is we have graduated from mediocre Baker, from inconsistent Baker. He's now a guy I want to watch every single week. Whether Mike Evans is in or out, whether Chris Godwin is in or out, he's a guy I want to watch every single week. And those are the kind of players that should be making the most money in this league, in my opinion, right? I mean, obviously they're producing. Baker was a top 5 production player last year. He's inside the top 10, but not quite a top 5 this year. The numbers are down. So's the offense, right? Banged up all over the place. In fact, most of the sharp bettors were downplaying the first 3 to 4 games of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers season because they were so banged up, because the schedule had some bangers on it. And you just kind of associated them with maybe coming out of this thing 2-2 to start the year. They get some guys back from injured reserve, and then maybe they go on a run. Instead, they're 3-0 in one of the most improbable fashions that we've seen since the merger. And certainly Baker's a reason for that. He's running the ball. He's got some efficiency. The passer rating's right around 100 again, which is where he wanted to be. He's playing on $43 million this year, as we noted last week. He's got $40 million next year on the books. Only a little bit of that $13 million is guaranteed right now. If he stays on this pace, we're talking about a massive extension for Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay, and a team that should compete in this division for the foreseeable future. All right. A little bit of negativity before we get to our WNBA segment. We had some injuries, and unfortunately, there's some injuries that it looks like are going to be season-ending, starting with James Conner, the running back for the Arizona Cardinals. Boy, this guy's so easy to root for. He's been doing it all for a long time. And he was in year 2 of a 3-year contract that could pay out $25 million total, making $4.25 million this year after making about $12 million last year with the signing bonus on the extension. He's going to lose about $420,000 now because of those per game bonuses that he'll miss out on. And none of the $8 million owed to him next year is guaranteed. So it's a situation where, you know, the injury probably leads to his release. Arizona probably moves on and goes younger at this position, probably even drafts his replacement in the upcoming 2026 draft. But there's some young bodies who can take over here. And this is one of those unfortunate situations for a position that just can't have anything go wrong, right? It's kind of got to be a perfect storm for you to even stay in your current contract, let alone get another one. So I don't think he'll hang him up after this, though he's had a career that's worthy of that. But he's probably coming back on something close to the near minimum because he'll be rehabbing himself from ankle surgery over the course of the next few months, leading towards what most likely is going to be a release into free agency next March. Speaking of which, Najee Harris, running back for the Los Angeles Chargers, man, the 1-2 punch of Harris and Amari Hampton was looking strong, was starting to build some momentum. Obviously, the Chargers are in the driver's seat right now in the AL West. Because of the fact that the Chiefs have dipped, the Raiders don't look like they're ready to progress, and Denver has looked a little beat up here for one reason or another. Maybe a little bit of regression for Bo Nix. That's not the case with Justin Herbert, who has come out guns blazing, and this running game was one of the reasons why it was able to finally support the big-time passing game that Justin Herbert can bring to the table. So this is a huge loss, not only for the Chargers, but for Najee Harris, who had signed a pretty decent, fully guaranteed $5.25 million contract that had $4 million more in rushing incentives. And he was going to hit probably half of those and put this thing on like $7.5 million, which is really nice corn for a player coming out of a rookie contract, didn't have his fifth-year option exercised, was basically exiled out of Pittsburgh, and still found a decent contract to walk into. Well, that won't be the case now in March. Okay, he's got a knee injury here that looks like, or an Achilles injury, excuse me, that we don't have the full severity of it yet, but looks like it's going to take out his season. And you know how these go. You got to slow play yourself back on an Achilles injury. So most likely he'll be signing a contract next March that is with rehabilitation in mind. He still won't be fully 100% ready, maybe until the start of training camp, maybe not even, depending on the severity of this thing. So he's probably going down to a near minimum contract next March as well, maybe even to stay in Los Angeles, right? And we've seen that happen now more than a couple times. If this 1-2 punch is something they want to continue with, he is 27 years old. Amari Hampton's cheap. You can bring back Harris on maybe a $2 million incentive-laden contract and try to run back this thing 1-2 punch, but with Hampton as the RB1 out of the gate in terms of this committee. And Najee Harris is more the complementary role going into 2026. We'll see if that's the case. Nick Bosa, edge rusher for the San Francisco 49ers, left with a knee injury, did not return in week 3. We don't know the severity of this one, though I have been reading some rumblings from the San Francisco people that this one doesn't look great. That doesn't necessarily mean surgery, season ending, but it could mean significant time missed. Boy, isn't that the story of the San Francisco 49ers over the past 3 seasons, let alone already in 2025. But this is year 3 of a 6-year, $189 million contract. He's earning a little over $30 million this year. He will lose a little bit of per game bonuses if he misses some time. But here's the good news. He had $22.6 million of next year's salary fully guaranteed already. That happened this past April. That's good news. That's what you want. You want to see somebody who suffers an injury have security in 2026. That's exactly what the case is here. It's the last year where he'll have a guaranteed salary in terms of an early trigger. So the timing is somewhat, decent for Bosa right now to go through this, but we'll see how severe it is. And we'll see if the 3-0 49ers can resist yet another injury and stay relevant for this 2025 playoff run. And finally, I promised some WNBA talk. We'll get there. This CBA is set to expire on October 31st, Halloween. The players decided to opt out of it last fall, which means the expiration is now this coming Halloween day. And they have been attempting to make this thing work. There have been some discussions. There have been numbers passed around according to Front Office Sports, our good friends over there. There's been discussions about the minimum salaries, the maximum salaries, to the point of where the max salary, which is about $250,000 right now, could be increasing to $1 million based on an offer that's been presented to the Players Association. It's a great start. Okay, you want these great players in the millions, because I'm telling you right now, I cringe every single time I have to post something about 4-time MVP Asia Wilson making $240,000 and getting a $15,000 bonus for the award. Look, I get it. You are a product of what you earn, what you develop, what you generate. But it's also no secret that they're about to start a $2.2 billion media rights deal next season. And they've got 3 new expansion teams on the books, Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia, each of which paid $250 million to buy into the league. And this is the one that is really makes these CBA discussions the most interesting. So the deadline's October 31st. In my opinion, just how this has worked both in this league and other leagues, my guess is the plan is already to extend that to December 31st. Let's extend the deadline, give ourselves more time to maneuver and operate here. Let's get past the postseason a little bit here, which is a couple weeks away from finishing. And then we can have some serious discussions for months, not days, not weeks, months, because we've got basically everything on the table in terms of improvement, maybe change, maybe policy changes. We'll see how it goes. But there are 2 franchisees, brand new expansion teams, looming for this upcoming season. Okay, There needs to be a multiple team expansion draft at some point in time here. And the last time that happened this past year with Golden State, that draft happened the first week of December. Okay, December 7th to be actual. Free agency starts February 1st. All right. You want to have time between expansion draft and free agency, and then obviously plenty of time to go from free agency to preseason and things like that. All right. But we don't have any of those dates until we have a new CBA, and we don't have a draft until we have a new CBA. So all of that has to be collectively bargained so that these things can happen. You don't want to start two brand new franchises, Portland and Toronto, in the midst of ghost states, TBD. And if you're going to change the way you do expansions, because you do have, a half a dozen teams coming into the league over the course of the next couple of seasons, the time to make those changes is obviously right now. So in my opinion, you extend this thing out to 2 months, but you're trying to get this thing ratified completely by December 1st to keep your timeline on track, to be able to have an expansion draft in place. Now, you got to give the teams ample time to understand how this draft is going to work, because teams have to protect players. Obviously, the new teams are going to try to make some trades, acquire some draft picks, acquire some veteran players. There's a lot that goes into this. This is not a simple matter. This is one of the more complex things that happens within an offseason, and it's rare. But we've got it times 2 this year. So can we get something done by December 1st? Let's schedule a mid-December expansion draft with team protections. And then can we get on course for that February 1st free agency, a date that is becoming kind of synonymous with the league? The big networks are doing free agency shows. The big networks are doing off-season work with this. This is all part of the formula for them. This is all part of the big media rights deals, all part of making sure that this league stays as red hot as it's become. Or is this league going to lock out? Because, that's the term. That's the headline right now that's surrounding both this and Major League Baseball as we head towards the end of these CBAs. Both leagues have a ton of a mess to clean up. There's no question about that. But, the WNBA as a whole is in its heyday right now. We've had that discussion before. Obviously Caitlin Clark missing the majority of the season torpedoed a lot of interest, a lot of marketability, probably a lot of revenue. Angel Reese having an up and down season, great at times, awkward at times, didn't help things too much. Not having that rivalry as a whole didn't help things too much. There's still some players who are still trying to find their sea legs in this league. Paige Beckers is not one of them, okay? Paige Beckers walking into this league and winning Rookie of the Year is excellent news and a bit of a resuscitation for this weird season for this league. We'll see where we get to in the finals, but Asia Wilson becoming a dynasty Hall of Fame player in front of our eyes. People are still learning her name for the first time, despite four MVP awards. But you've got kind of the recipe for success everywhere you look. Expansion, way more money, good TV rights, superstars pretty much on every single team across the league. And obviously 2 or 3 names that are becoming synonymous in the sports world, not just the basketball world and not just the women's basketball world, but the sports world. That's the recipe. That's what you have to mix up in the pot to have long-term success as a league. Everybody knows it. And I'm going to finish with sort of how I started, which is extend the deadline. Do not let that L word lockout become a part of your situation right now, because the second people hear that, even if it's for 3 days, the second people hear that word, it feels like failure. And that can't be the case. You have got to keep as much positive juju surrounding this league as humanly possible. And it's difficult. And you're going to go through some nasty situations. The union, the league, the commissioner, they're all speaking out loud. That's a positive. Transparency is a good thing, because I think you want the general public involved in these conversations. Obviously, they have no general play on how much these players should be paid, or what the scheduling should look like, or what the playoff format should look like. But, letting people get involved is just keeping them interacted. And it's why we appreciate that their salaries have become so transparent. that we're allowed to post things like this, that we're allowed to talk about these things. Because I can tell you right now, without naming names, most of the women's sports leagues don't want any of this information out there. They know that they're behind the 8 ball, and it's not their fault. It's just what they're able to generate right now. It's the cost of doing business at that smaller level. They don't want to hear comparisons to what the male sports are making. They don't want to have Caitlin Clark versus Steph Curry on the Today Show. But the WNBA is going all in on this. They're saying we're doing the best we can. Maybe, in fact, we're overachieving based on where we thought we would be right now. And I think that's true. They've got expansion. They've got all the things you need. And they are putting it out there for the general public to see, discuss, debate, and be involved with and interact with. To me, they're doing everything right. Don't let the L word hit you. Extend the deadline. Give yourself through Thanksgiving to get this right. Make changes, make incremental changes. And most importantly, and I think this is a big one, you don't have to fix everything in the next 2 months. Fix enough to get more people interested and on board. All right, now this league is starting to act like a big girl league. If more people are saying that alone, you have done your job. And obviously the players have to be happy and the owners have to be happy to a certain degree. But don't try to fix everything in the next 2 months. Give yourself steps. Give yourself an incremental package where certain things happen immediately, certain things are subject to happen after 2 or 3 years, and so forth and so forth. And do not be afraid to readdress this thing every single year, something that Major League Baseball has become very good at. If something needs to be changed in baseball, it has been changed immediately. And that's kind of become the norm with many of these major leagues, right? You're going to see that. We see it with football. I believe we'll see that again next March with the tush push. Okay. Things that are coming into play. Now, we're not talking about changing the salary cap structure. However, to bring a little NFL into this, Roger Goodell has talked about the fact that the ability to convert salary into bonus and void years and all the dead cap that's been piling up might be becoming a problem, might becoming a situation that the league as a whole may want to attack in the upcoming CBA. So he has started to plant breadcrumbs, right? And I think the commissioner of the WNBA has done that as well. We've seen her on all the big talk shows, certainly on ESPN, not only discussing the positives, but also the negatives and some of the things that she wants to bring to the table with these very discussions that we're talking about here. So obviously, minimum salary increases, maximum salary increases, a much more aggressive rookie wage scale. How do we get ourselves into a situation where there's additional compensation for players who are improving the league, performing the league, generating revenue for the league? Obviously, they have the ability to do that off the court, but can the league pump more money back into those players and keep them not only happy, but here? Okay, something that women's soccer is having a hell of a lot of trouble with right now. Most of the names you care about in women's soccer are leaving the NWSL and going over to the Europa League or the Women's Super League and playing for your Chelseas and your Arsenals and your Manchesters, etc. That can't happen here, okay? Because there are smaller iterations popping up in America. It's only a matter of time before all the big countries get on board with women's basketball and actually start to compete with this WNBA situation. But I'm going to keep it positive. I think the league's in a great spot, despite the fact that there were some step backs this year with Caitlin. It's a very important time for them to stay on track, on timeline, get these expansion teams on the books as quickly as possible. Obviously, increase the salaries, increase the percentage that players make, fix some scheduling stuff, and then let's get this thing right back on the court next year, because they're in their moment right now. They're in their era right now, to bring it all full circle. And that L word coming any close to a league could be a death sentence, as we've seen in the past, in terms of interest, following, and overall general revenue. All right, what's happening on SpotTrack.com right now? Well, I finally got to an article. It's been a minute. It's been a very data-intensive last month or so. But I felt like a really good time 3 weeks in now of this NFL season to go through the quarterbacks. We've got some injury situations already. We've got some rookies taking over. There's some veteran quarterbacks kind of hanging in the balance here. So I went starting quarterback by starting quarterback, all 32, and gave you a full breakdown of where we are with this contract. Okay, so What kind of guarantees do we have going forward? How much money is left going forward starting in 2026 through the remainder of their contract? Any kind of potential out stuff, any kind of trade value stuff. There's a couple of pending UFAs who might be extension worthy, things like that. All 32 situations quickly. It's a quick read. It's a data-driven read, but I think it's an important read, and it's one we'll do probably again in 9 weeks when we're about 3/4 of the way through the season, and we're starting to write some of the storylines for 2026. I'm kind of jumping on those a little bit here with players like Jordan Love and Tua, and obviously some extension candidates heading into 2026 as well, like Baker Mayfield, the aforementioned Baker Mayfield, as well as a few others. But that's live on SpyTrack.com. It's called the Future Starting Quarterback Contract Statuses piece. Keith Smith has a few NBA pieces up, including maybe the last big storyline hanging in the balance in the NBA, which is Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors. They've gotten basically nowhere, and we're at the point now where it sounds like he may just be playing on the qualifying offer and then get himself into some sort of free agent situation in 2026. But it's impacted the Warriors. It's impacted a lot of teams. I thought they had a chance at Kuminga, and neither of those things have happened as of yet. And we are less than a month away from the start. October 21st is the start of the WNBA season. And that piece is now live on SpotTrack, including an off-season spending piece from Keith, a big one. If you need to look back and see where we were, there were off-season spendings that exceeded $800 million in total. Keith has basically a full breakdown on how those went team by team, now live on SpotTrack.com as well. We'll have plenty more to get to after tonight's NFL games, including an update on the best value players in the NFL, at least to start the season. And we'll be back soon with another edition of the SpotTrack podcast.